Hello, this is Just Listen, hosted by George. Today is June 24th, 2024. Welcome to the program. Today, I want to talk about the U.S. government policy on DEI. And just to refresh your memory, that stands for diversity, equity, inclusion, and you can add accessibility in the federal workforce. And it was an executive order done June 25th, 2021 by President Biden. The reason that this is important is for several reasons. Why we cannot have a preferred minority group, what are the unintended effects of DEI, and what does the future look like? So let's get specific. There was an article called "A Grant Program for Black Women Business Owners is Discriminatory, Appeals Court Rules." And I'll say that again in case you didn't hear me the first time. A grant program for black women business owners is discriminatory, appeals court rules. Now let's talk about this preferred minority group. Over the last 2 years, since you've had this executive order, if you read the online news and you watch the streaming services, you see that there has been a concerted effort, and I guess I'm making up a new word here, preferred minority group, where a group of people are promoting the diversity and equity toward one group. And I think in a previous podcast, I warned about what could happen if the preferred group went against the other minorities. So in this case, in this article, it's an investment grant. It's called Fearless Fund, and it was giving grants of $20,000 to black women, and a group went against it and said this is discriminatory because you cannot have a preferred group within a minority that you're giving preference to. No one else can apply for this within the minority group unless it's a black woman. So the appeals court said that what they were doing violated Section 1981 of the 1866 Civil Rights Act, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of race when enforcing contracts. So that's what the courts used. But to put it in layman's terms, when you are executing contracts, you have rules that they have to follow with minority contracts, and they violated that. And also, when they tried to put together this Fearless Fund grant program, they excluded all minorities except for black women. Now, here's what they also said about it too. Fearless, and they're talking about the Fearless Fund, simply and flatly refuses to entertain applications from business owners who aren't black females. And that was the court's majority opinion. Every act of race discrimination would be deemed expressive conduct under the Fearless Fund argument. Which leads into my second point of the unintended effects of DEI. Do you remember when in California And across the nation, there was a lawsuit from California where Asian Americans said that the affirmative action directive kept them from being admitted into college. And it went up to the Supreme Court. And as a result of that, the affirmative action was ended in college admissions. And when I did that podcast about that, I agreed that affirmative action should be ended. And I'll stand by the fact that the DEI tied into that decision. Why? Because there are more minority groups in the country, not just black people. They say people of color, you've got Asian Americans, you've got all different groups in the country. And when people start putting labels on themselves, they want certain rights and they want to be part of being a minority. And DEI empowered that by saying, hey, look at the workplace. Well, these people are missing. You know, when I worked in the federal government, I may have seen in 30 years, scratch that, 40 years of federal service, 3 Native Americans. I probably saw 10 Asians. But the reason that they didn't join, we'll never know, but they could have joined. And in the private sector, I believe that it's the same way. And when the government made this DEI an accessibility program, they probably had good intentions. But the good intentions don't work with the DEI program if you do not include all minorities under one umbrella. And like I said, I invented this word, preferred minority group, to what is happening right now. Now, if you read the article, and you can, is very biased against conservatives and against facts. You have to look at every case for the merits and what's presented by the lawyers. You cannot call it discriminatory and racist just based on the fact that they ruled against you because you were a minority. And that's a big problem because it gives people the impression that you feel like things are unfair based on the color of your skin. And we really need to get away from that kind of thinking. I wanted to add that there's been some other court cases as well that have been won by minority groups, but only because they didn't do a preferred grant or business directing it toward just one specific group within the minority. Now, the black-owned businesses are safe for now, but I'm going to tell you that they're going to be challenged in the future based on the DEI program. And like I told you, with affirmative action, that signaled that the other minority groups are going to start asserting that they can't be excluded either, and there's millions of dollars at stake in education and in business loans. The company that so far have been able to get cases dismissed based on keeping with small business owners, black, or Amazon, Pfizer, and Starbucks. But the only reason that they won, if you go and read, is because it was the majority. It was a majority person who filed the lawsuit. So if an Asian, a Native American, someone from India would have filed the same lawsuit, they had a good chance of winning because you can't have a black owned small business grants and loans and exclude the other groups. And that's what I keep trying to warn our audience about because it's an unintended effect of DEI. So the minorities need to pay attention when they're starting these programs if they do preferred minority group, because even if the Asians have a scholarship, someone from another minority group could challenge that as well. So it works both ways. It's not one-sided. But currently, the federal government appears to prefer one minority group over the other, and that is what's causing some of these lawsuits. And I think once the actual minorities, which I stated earlier, start filing against the other minorities, the courts are going to have to rule and say it has to be fair and it has to include all of the minority groups. This is George. Just listen. What do you think?